back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us again this evening. We're always happy for people like you, people that are interested in what's happening in our cities, because it is really important for good government to have people that live in their cities, interacting with the people that are on the city council, with the city staff, that you have people know what's going on and sharing their thoughts and ideas. So we're glad that you're with us tonight. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to share their thoughts and ideas on what's been happening in the city and what's up and coming in the future. So you'll have a better idea of what's going on. And we do encourage you to take down the person's name and email and phone number if it's your city, so if we talk about an issue that resonates with you, you can be in contact. Now, we're very happy tonight to welcome Jim Adams, who's the mayor of Crystal, on our show again. It's been a little while.
It has been.
So we're glad to have you back.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Good, good. And you know that I'd let you introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and your time in Crystal. People in Crystal probably already know quite a bit, but
it's hard to know.
There's people out there that don't. So
right.
Give them some background.
All right. My name's Jim Adams. I've been the mayor of Crystal for 5 years, and I'm married. I have 3 children. I run sober houses for addicts and alcoholics. That's what I do for a business. I also do some construction work as well. Beyond that, my background was financial accounting, so
that fits.
I bring that in kind of to budget time.
Right.
It becomes something that I focus heavily on, is the financial side of things. And I think as we talk tonight, you're going to see some of that. So
good.
That's who I am in a nutshell. And
well, we're very glad to have you with us. Now, we'll start out talking about some issues that we talked about ahead of time. And let's just touch on road construction, because it's at the very end of its cycle right now. Maybe you can tell us, what is Crystal's long-term street construction plan? Because you've got a plan for what you want to do with your streets.
Correct. Yeah. We are just wrapping up our last phase of street reconstruction in Crystal.
Yeah, that's why I thought we should touch it, right?
You know, I mean, it's been a long time coming. We've been doing this since the mid-90s. And so now we're going to have about a 20-year reprieve before we have to worry about any type of complete street reconstruction.
Oh, that should help.
Yeah, which gives us an opportunity to do some great planning, and that's what we're going to do. In the past, we would assess for those projects, which means we were only able to give a very short notice to the homeowners how much they're going to have to pay for the street reconstruction in front of their homes. And it gives them very little wiggle room and chance to plan for whatever expenditures they may have. You know, they might have a year, year and a half tops to start, you know, saving up like $7,000, $8,000. Most families can't do that. So what our plan is to bring all of that away from assessments and put it back on the tax levy. That way there's not going to be hidden finance charges by bonding for that money. And every dollar that we pay from the tax levy is going to go to the project, to the planning, to the TAR, to the design, to all of that, and there won't be any wasted money there. And that's been something I've been preaching for 5 years, is we need to spend every dollar on our projects and stop, you know, using the credit card and sending the money to the banks. So we're excited that we're coming to the end of that phase. And basically my plan from the get-go is to replace our debt with long-term planning, and this fits in perfectly with that plan, because it's taken 5 years to get to the end of this, so we can take that next step in long-term planning.
Yeah, because all of our cities have different plans for their streets, but yours is one of the few that is at the ending point for
right. There's no doubt that the plan to systematically go through Crystal was able to get everything looking pretty sharp and getting everything done. And there's some benefit to that. However, there's also some costs that happen too from the taxpayers, and we really want to use some of that money in different places. We got a lot more things that need attention, and so now we're going to be able to start taking some money and putting it towards those other areas.
What were the last streets, or what streets were reconstructed this summer, or what area?
It would be Ward 4 for us, which is the northwestern area of the suburbs, so near the airport. by Bass Lake Road and Highway
Okay.
81's up in that area. So, yeah.
And then that finishes off that plan.
Finishes
so,
that
like
off.
you said, you don't have to do that all the time.
No, no. There's going to be maintenance moving forward.
Oh, right.
So you'll see mill and overlay, you know,
Right,
15
right.
years out, maybe 20 years out, and then those won't get. They probably won't be considered for reconstruction for another 20 years after
Right,
that.
right.
So those are a long ways away from having to have that done again. So.
But at least you're looking down the long road plan for
Right.
how to handle
Yeah.
them and what to do. Now, one of the things that probably road construction people like when it's done, but in the middle of it, there's lots of things that can be irritating to people,
Sure.
right? How do you keep in touch with residents, or how do you handle that part of it?
Well, we've gotten very good at it.
Ah.
You know, our staff have been doing it every year for
Right,
such a long
right.
time that they got methods that they know exactly how to
Ah.
talk and when to talk to the residents.
Ah, that's good.
So really, there's only like 1 or 2 days in the construction project where they can't access their driveway. So it's a very small window.
Ah.
And we give them letters warning them when it's
Right.
going to be, and just prior to the actual day that they're not going
Right.
to get into their driveway, you know, they're informed by the project manager and hey, okay, it's coming
Okay.
tomorrow. And sometimes it causes a problem, and we're still able to work through. We had a
Ah.
driveway where there was handicapped people who
Uh-huh.
lived there, and they couldn't even afford 1 day of lost
Oh,
access.
yeah.
So what they did is they did one half of their driveway
Ah,
one day,
That was pretty nice.
so they could still have access on the
Right,
other half,
right.
and then the next day did the other half, and they had access on the part they had just done.
Right.
So they really do go the extra mile to make it really as convenient as possible. And sometimes we miss,
Oh,
but most
yeah.
of the time
Right.
we do everything we can to accommodate. So staff has been great in that respect, and so have our subcontractors.
So for the future, you're moving into a different way of financing. Has the city council set that up yet, or is that something you're going to be dealing with in terms of setting up the actual
Fund?
statutes that handle that?
The funding of the
Right.
street reconstruction. We've started.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're bringing our reconstruction and our maintenance together in one fund.
Uh-huh.
And that fund is going to grow over time because
Okay.
it's going to have to, in 30 years, we'll have to be reconstructing
right.
some of the roads on the south side. So, yeah, we are increasing our funding to it. Last year, we took some of our funds that we used to do the same thing for maintenance.
Right.
We used to assess for that as well. So we took that off the assessment roll and put that on the tax levy. So we've been seeing some increases in our tax levy
Right.
where everybody can see it. So
They know what's happening.
they know exactly
Right.
what's happening.
And
There's no
which is-
surprises.
Right, and not a big, huge cost at one lump sum.
Right.
Right.
It's real interesting because when you look to the south side of Crystal, when they first did the street
Uh-huh.
reconstruction, it was 3,000, roughly 3,000, 3,500 was the average street
Right,
assessment.
right.
Well, as it comes around and they're doing their first mill and overlay
Uh-huh.
maintenance, the assessment would have been about 3,500
Ah.
25 years
Right,
later. So
right.
it's the same cost.
Right.
And it's like, wow, it's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Right.
Even after that many years, it's still a lot of money even for the maintenance. So it was important for us to take that surprise away
Right,
from the
right.
citizens and put it where a lot of people would argue where it belongs.
Right. So a new plan and a new way of financing.
Absolutely, it's awesome.
Now, Crystal has been looking at body cameras and their police department, along with many, many other areas. Where are you at in the process? I know that you were gathering information, but what steps has Crystal taken in regards to that?
We've been gathering information. We've approved
Okay.
the body camera program.
Okay.
So
Step one, right?
Step one, yeah. The approval is done. The funding is done. What we're in the process of doing is the implementation.
Oh,
and that
okay.
part of the implementation is first getting a couple test cameras
Uh-huh.
into a couple officers' hands.
Okay.
Getting some of the logistics as far as downloading the cameras, making sure all those systems are working together between the cameras, the squad cars, and the servers, make sure all that works
right,
together.
right.
So we've been in that pilot program for most of the year.
Oh, okay.
And as the program continues, we'll be bringing in more and more cameras until we go live where it's going to be comprehensive and everybody has a camera. All officers will have cameras, and it's not only just the technical side of it, but it's the officers getting used to getting trained up and used to using the cameras and making sure that their cameras are on when they're required to be on.
Right.
And that just kind of leads to the other pieces. What are our policies? When do they have to have the cameras on? And the police department has a lot of resources where they go to their associations. They look for standard practices from other cities who've already implemented it. Right. And so we've pulled policies together there, and we're implementing those policies in the test phase as well to see how functional they are and whether there's something that the police can actually do. So that we're not putting unrealistic expectations on our officers.
Oh, it sounds like that's a good method, so that you're going at it slow enough that you can analyze what it is you want to do and how does it affect the whole situation.
Right. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Oh, right. Have you had any feedback really strongly for it or against it? Because there's a lot of strong feelings in regards to it across the metro area.
This one has, I think the initial people who were doing it had dealt with a lot of that strong feelings. We haven't had much pushback whatsoever.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
That's
kind of cool.
People are kind of excited. Some of the police are very excited because they have a certain liability when they're out there.
Oh, right.
And they're doing the right thing. And in our day, it's very hard because the police are being scrutinized so dramatically.
Definitely, right.
And they're like, please put the camera on because I don't want to be falsely accused of something.
Right.
So there's a huge movement from within the police department who say, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it now. Can we do it today?
That's cool.
So it's very positive from that perspective.
Yeah, it sounds like you're moving on where everybody's getting heard, so you aren't getting a lot of boil back on it.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to police departments, I've heard so much about our police department and how they've been trained to some of the most current standards, and they're doing things that are the best practices of the day. They're really doing things right on. So kudos to the administration who helps them with that training. Right. But really, kudos to them for implementing what they've been trained doing. So I keep hearing more and more comments about our police department, in a very positive light.
Now, your city is not alone, but you're making changes in the ordinances that you have. I know New Hope's book of all the laws and stuff that they've got on the books is pretty thick. I'm sure Crystal's is the same. But when you're making these processes of change in the ordinances, why are you doing it? For people that are saying, why are they doing that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why we're doing it. Number one, our book is about 3 inches. We had more ordinances than people.
That's sort of a good measure.
It was a horrible thing when you looked at it. And some of them had been adjusted and changed so many different times that it was hard to just read it and understand what it said. Sure. When you look at alcohol or liquor store laws and all that, something changes at the state, so we do an add-on. Yeah. It changes, on Sundays you do an add-on. It changes, over and over, and next thing you know, you have an ordinance with 5 or 6 different entries, and they don't make sense when you look at them all together. Right. So what we did is we took those and we simplified them, made them one ordinance, made it more easy to read. I know some of the council members that came on almost 4 years ago now. They had an initiative where they wanted things to be very easy to read and understandable. We called it the plain language initiative, and that was instituted in the process so that it wasn't a whole lot of legalese. Right. We could refer to a lot of the state ordinances by code, but yet you could read the ordinance and know what it was saying. Right. So a lot of reasons why we did that. Yeah. And what's interesting about the way we did that, it was citizen volunteers who came in. We had a ton of them. They came in and they read the ordinances. Right. God bless them. You know, I mean, to read
Right.
that,
I mean,
that many
'cause
ordinances.
you have to have somebody do that if you're going to look at changing.
And then come
right.
up with opinions and sort out, okay, well, this is what we want to see in our community. And between them, the city lawyer,
Oh, right.
city staff, they're rewriting all these things. Their work is done, but right now it's in the hands of the city staff. And they're taking the changes that were recommended, bringing some of them to the council, and we're just kind of getting them rewritten.
It's kind of a long-term process, right?
Yeah, it's a long process.
But I know a lot of the cities are doing that, and people are wanting, what's the word? Transparency, right?
Right, absolutely.
That's the new in word,
That
right?
is. Yeah, we do a lot with transparency, yep.
Can you give an example of something where there was a change made to help people understand why?
Well, some are kind of silly.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You know, for a city building, you can't have a pool table within, I think it was 500 feet. So when we looked at our community center and they had a pool table in there, we said, hey, does that qualify?
Right.
So, I mean, that's one of them.
Right.
But there's some silly things like you can't have a clothesline in your backyard. But, you know, there's others that are dysfunctional when you can't have more, so when you restrict the number of parking places in a driveway,
Okay, right.
and you restrict how many people that, you know, the parking on the
Right,
road. You
right.
can't park on the road, and you can only have so many. Well, if you have a family of 5 and they become teenagers,
What do
you're
you
in
do?
trouble.
Right, yeah.
So we had to kind of figure out, okay, what was the intent of this this particular driveway rule, and how can we accommodate that, as well as, you know, serve the people who own the homes they're living in.
And so there's an ongoing group that's doing that for the city?
They've
actually gone through it?
They've gone through it.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So the lawyers now are putting that into the legalese, plus the staff is pushing what we're asking them to push, the plain language. So it's not just, you know, write the ordinance and pull it from this city. No, we're doing the work to rewrite the stuff to where it's understandable. Right. It's a big deal.
What do you think it will cut down in the number of ordinances that you have? Obviously, you aren't through yet. So.
Geez, I have no idea, but I'm guessing we'll probably at least eliminate a third.
Okay, Crystal is working on a comprehensive plan, like all of our other cities.
Yeah.
They're under the Metropolitan Council, so they require that of the cities to do long-term planning. When does an update need to be submitted to them? How long a time do you have to get it finished?
Well, it has to be done by the end of next year.
Right.
So our staff is already working on that right now. We will, as a council, get involved in discussions later this year and early next year. We don't expect to see a whole lot of changes, but we're going to have to review things, make sure they're in line with what we want to accomplish. But we don't see a whole lot happening as far as changing what we're doing.
Maybe you could read through that list of what are the different areas that have to be covered by this plan.
They talk about you know, affordable housing.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can remember the whole list right now.
I think it's on number 2 on page 4.
Okay.
Questions. So people understand what you're looking at in terms of planning.
Land use. Some of the land use that we'll be dealing with are something that will allow a little bit higher density housing. Oftentimes, well, especially around transit. There's a lot of push for that higher, you know, density in that area. We're going to talk about that. I know there's a huge push for that. Some of that has already been changed, so I don't think we're going to see much different. Housing, we're a fully developed community. Housing's not going to change that much. What we do see in housing is some of our ordinances restricting on community-style living. And our ordinances have kind of addressed that already. So we're in process with that already. I mean, that happened through the task force organically, not it wasn't forced, it just happened. Transportation, Of course, we got the light rail, and that's a big part of it. Park trails, we've been working with Hennepin County and putting park trails. We've connected French Park and Theodore Worth, and that comes right through Crystal, through our Bassett Creek Park. So a lot of this stuff is being implemented or has already been implemented.
So, and a lot of it, there was a few more areas, maybe
Sure. Surface water, water supply, sanitary sewer. These are things that we've been continuously working, especially when we've been doing our street reconstruction. We've been able to deal with a lot of the storm water, and then we've been able to increase our holding ponds, that sort of thing. Open space, our parks, we'll talk a little bit more about parks, but we're making more open spaces for free play or non-active activities as well. So sanitary.
And it's a matter of taking.
Go ahead.
I'm interrupted the last area, right?
Sanitary sewers. That's all been redone through our street reconstruction. So we're ahead of the game on a lot of this stuff.
Oh, right. So it isn't necessarily a matter of bringing new things in, but looking at what you're doing, and do you want to still continue doing it, right?
Correct.
Or does it make sense?
Right. And there's a lot of push for affordable housing and some higher density stuff. We do have a huge challenge to meet what Met Council wants us to meet, because we are fully developed. Right. And private property rights still exist, and cities can't come in and just take over a block and put up a 5-story building. Right. So we had a lot of difficulty the last go around with them dealing with their projections, and we had to say, let's get realistic here. We're fully developed, and these opportunities are going to be far and few between. Right. And that's why we're working on some of our community-styled ordinances that allow us to redevelop maybe 2 city lots at a time, 3 city lots at a time, to make like a community with smaller condos with some shared space. And in the past, our ordinances kind of prevented that, because they were pretty cookie cutter. Right. We want our lots to look like this, and we want, doesn't leave room for any imagination or creativity. So
and then you get to a point where that's not what people are looking for anymore.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, seriously, there's a lot of people who are looking for smaller places, and they have their third place to live.
Now, how are people in your community involved in this process of setting up the comprehensive plan for 2040, right?
Yes, 2040. Right. That seems like such a long ways away.
Right.
We will obviously be talking about them in our work sessions, which are open to the public. They can come to them, they can listen to them online. We will have some meetings, and they will be advertised on our website as far as what some of the changes are, what some of the updates will be. So they can.
And you'll want the feedback from community members on all of those areas, right?
Well, sure. Right. Absolutely.
And then the City of Crystal needs to interact with the cities that border it too, to make sure what you're doing doesn't counteract something they're doing, right? Yeah,
we've had that very thing just recently between a couple of our neighbors, where one city will approve it, but it's on the border of the other, and the other city says, no, thank you. We don't want to see that happen there, because it's going to affect our residents. Right. And we work with our neighbors. Yeah. So, the results are pretty good. Yeah, and really so
it's something that needs to be done, but it's also required to be done.
Right.
And who can people go to if they have any questions about your comprehensive plan? Now, your current comprehensive plan that you're reviewing is on your website, right?
I believe it is, yes.
So if they've got questions about it?
John Sutter's probably the best person to talk to. They can also call the main number, and they can talk to the operator, and they'll send them to whomever's available. There are a number of people who can answer a lot of questions.
Because if people are interested, they can look at the overall plan. I'm sure not a whole lot of people would want to be
Right.
are interested in the whole plan, but there might be areas and parts of the plan, that they really have a strong desire to see certain things happening.
But there are people that do. I think
Yep,
there
there
were
are.
a couple people in Crystal who, in this studio,
Right.
read the comprehensive plan just so they could
Oh.
understand it, and they
Ah.
had conversations
Well,
about
that's
it
pretty good.
and what it meant, and
Right.
trying to weed through what some of
Right.
the requirements was and how it would affect their taxes.
And then another area that has been, and I don't even know how many years, maybe only one, there's a crystal ball, a masquerade ball that you had. Was that an ongoing event or is it a new one?
Its future is we're not sure how long it
Okay.
will last. I mean, we did it last year as a masquerade
Right,
ball.
right.
We're going to do it again this year.
And you sold out.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to do it again this year, and it's not going to be a masquerade ball this year.
Okay,
It's going to
something
be
different.
kind of a 20s theme.
Okay.
So they're changing the theme a little bit, and this kind of goes to what I was just speaking about.
Right.
Our neighborhoods. We have our Night to Unite
Right.
every summer, and we get to know our neighbors, our immediate neighborhoods.
Uh-huh.
We wanted an event where we could bring the other neighbors together,
Ah.
similar to Frolics,
Right.
but in the winter time.
Aha.
And this becomes that, it becomes
Right.
a chance for us to bring the neighborhoods together
Oh, right.
at the community center.
Right.
Enjoy some music, enjoy some food, some dancing. We have a band that will be coming and playing. And that particular event, if you get some creativity around it, could really become something that has multifaceted entertainment
Uh-huh.
where you can bring different local entertainers
Oh,
into
right,
the community center,
right.
and you can have different venues just inside the
Ah.
community center. That's kind of one of the visions I
Oh,
have,
yeah, the
have
whole
seen.
space would lend
Yeah.
itself to that.
Yeah, it definitely would, and it's there's a lot of things there that that could be,
Uh-huh.
and it's just a matter of do people want to go? Do people want to be a
Right.
part of that and do that? And again, if you have these creative ideas, bring them to the task
Ah.
force. I mean, we have a community outreach task force
Right.
who has a committee that's going to be putting that on,
Ah.
and they'd love to see your help.
And that'd be in March again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The
I don't re-
same time period.
I don't recall the exact date and
Right.
time, but certainly look for it.
But it is a good time to encourage people to get involved in
Right.
it.
Yep. The planning and designing it's going to be starting now.
Uh-huh.
So just in the next couple months they'll get
Well,
rolling.
and then it did raise a lot of money for food shelves, right? For the near food shelf?
Well,
Or did
I don't
people
know.
brought-
It did raise money
Yeah.
for the food shelf. I don't know what a lot is.
But, well, I mean, in terms of that they got money out of that event.
Right.
It was a fun event, and
It was
people
a
had
fun
a good
event.
time, but also did good.
It paid for the event, and
Right.
plus it did some
Right.
social outreach.
Right.
Absolutely. So yeah, that definitely happened.
And that was the thing I was asked, it was going to happen again, and I wasn't
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Because that was really the first one last year.
Right. Right.
So if there's enough people that want to put the work and effort in, and then you certainly had enough people that wanted to come, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep. So
See what happens.
yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on and sharing all these things in Crystal so that our audience out there knows a little more about what's happening. And we'll ask you to be sure to tune in next week for part 2 on Crystal's issues. We're glad that you're with us, and we hope you join us again. Bye.